Hello, Gary Stearman. I'd like to take a few minutes along with Bob Ulrich to talk with you about a DVD, which both of us think is really a phenomenal production. Bob, we've gotten this DVD in. We both looked at it, and the thing is loaded with information, but what's even better than that, it leads you through some information that everybody's talking about, but nobody's really sure about. You can kind of watch this and become your own expert, right?
This is true. I've made a lot of trips to the post office in the last few days, carrying these to lands unknown, literally all over the world. People already have them in their hands, already watched them. Some of the people have watched it 5 times. Now, what would possess someone to watch a DVD 5 times?
Well, what would possess them is actually what possessed me. When I watched the DVDs, I became, if you will, carried away by just the sheer abundance of information. These guys, and we're talking here about Jonathan Cahn, about Mark Biltz, about Bill Salas, they don't have just 1 fact or 2 facts or 3 facts. They have 100 facts, and they're laying these things out and in head-swimming detail, and you really need to go back and look at it again. Now, the way the DVDs are laid out, there are 4 of them in the package, and the first one is kind of a summary of all 3 interviews, so you don't have to laboriously scrutinize these huge, long interviews. You can get the abbreviated version, but then if you want more info, you go to each of the other 3 DVDs for in-depth interviews. So there's just more information than you can imagine.
I call it the hour and 20 minutes soundbite. And you know how fast Jonathan Cahn talks. Trying to follow him because he is just a fountain of information. And it's just like a machine gun firing at you. You have to keep stopping and listening and making sure you got all the facts, because there's so many facts, there's so much proof. You know, we sit here today and we're looking at the blood moons, we're looking at the Shemitah cycle, we're looking at what we know is going to be another war in the Middle East, Israel fighting for survival, and we've got 3 guys, Biltz, Cahn, and Salas. I mean, these 3 guys are experts on these 3 subjects. So what's fascinating is you can get the soundbite version, an hour and 20 minutes, or you can get an hour-long interview where they answer their critics. They cover every little tidbit of everything to do with these 3 fascinating subjects.
The interviewer, Tom Carey, does a masterful job of drawing out information, and he has some rather unique approaches to this. And the executive producer of this DVD series is a man by the name of Troy Duhan. And his testimony on this DVD series, I think, is worth just watching in and of itself, because Troy Duhan is still an automotive dealer, and he was in the flood that followed Hurricane Katrina and essentially lost all his inventory. His empire crashed.
$32 million.
$32 million. And as he describes it, he was at the home, I believe, of his father, was watching Katrina on television. He saw his cars underwater, and he broke into tears. And he said, "What am I going to do?" And that is the beginning of a very encouraging, uplifting testimony, which, by the way, we all need to listen to.
Well, you got to love the story that he tells, because he correlates the levees breaking in New Orleans with America, and how God's hand of protection appears to be getting less and less influential in our country as we turn our backs on God, as we take the 10 Commandments out of the public eye and take God out of the schools. And now the Supreme Court is voting on God's definition of marriage. And so we're watching.
Way, God's definition of human sexuality. Is there such thing as a man or a woman? Or can you just be a woman if you decide to be a woman, or vice versa? We are literally ripping apart the kingdom of God, and it's happening right in front of our eyes.
And this is all about judgment. If you look at Mark's message, if you look at Jonathan's message, if you look at Bill's message, all of them talk about, is America about to come under heavy judgment? And the message culminates in a period of time coming this September 13th, September 28th, we have the 4th blood moon. And so most of you guys who are watching today have been following these, you understand them. But here we are, just a few short months away.
Bob, let's spend about 5 minutes talking about a question. what is the legitimate study of Bible prophecy? What does it include, or what does it exclude? Is it legitimate to talk about the blood moons? Some people have said, well, that has nothing to do with the church, and you don't know that anything's going to happen. Is it legitimate to talk about the Shemitah cycles and the fact that they've been linked to financial crashes in the past, and to infer from that there's going to be another financial crash September 13th of this year? And some people would say, well, that's not legitimate Bible study. We don't need to study that. We have the Word of God, and we just trust the Lord, and we don't need to go into all these other things. Is it legitimate to go to Psalm 83, as Bill Salas does, and to look at those nations and say, that's a prophecy of what's happening right now? Is Bill overstepping, or is he legitimately studying Bible prophecy? And I think that question comes up in this DVD.
Forbidden subjects. These are probably subjects you've probably never heard preached from the pulpit in church.
That's true.
But, all these guys have taken a lot of bullets, taken a lot of criticism, a lot of scorn about date setting. I mean, people have actually accused Jonathan Cahn of being an anti-Semite. Of course, he's Jewish, which kind of makes you laugh in a way. But really, I think their message, going back to Kahn's book, The Harbinger, The Mystery of the Shemitah, it's all about a warning to America that if you don't turn from what you're doing, from your wicked ways, judgment is at the door. And here we are, just 2-3 months away.
Bob, I'm holding a blood moon calendar, which, by the way, came from our inventory.
That's a brand new blood moon calendar.
Brand new one. And September 2015 is the first page in this calendar. And on the last day of Elul, which is the eve of Rosh Hashanah, we have a total solar eclipse. And you start counting 2 weeks, and you come to Tishri the 15th, Sukkot, and you have a total lunar eclipse, a blood moon, as Mark Bills calls it, because it looks like it's the color of blood up in the sky when it's totally covered up. So here's a 2-week period, and Jonathan Cahn and Mark Bills sort of overlap, if you will, because here we have the Shemitah cycle, which comes at the very end of the month of Elul and the beginning of the month of Tishri, coinciding with a 2-week build-up to the 4th blood moon. And again, you ask the question, as some have, is this legitimate to say that something is going to happen? Well, in these interviews, both Mark and Jonathan specifically say, no, we're not setting dates. But on the other hand, look at what has happened in the past.
Looking at trends.
And, I think that's perfectly legal.
I want to read real quick this little copy I printed off here when you talk about economic trends. On September 11th, planes were flown into the World Trade Center. President Bush shut the banks down for 6 days. They were closed on the day before Rosh Hashanah, but they reopened the next day on Rosh Hashanah. The stock market, bam, dropped 700 points, the largest decline in history. 7 years later, September 29th, 2008, the day before Rosh Hashanah again, stock market dropped 777 points. The largest one-day decline in history, broke another record. So this all happened on the day before Rosh Hashanah. Well, the current 7-year cycle ends on September 13th, 2015, just a few months away. And Jonathan says he's not predicting an economic collapse, but the last 2 Shemitah cycles we've seen a staggering economic collapse. We all know the stock market is just an absolute fantasy right now, overvalued. Everyone knows it. When will the collapse come? Will it come on a Shemitah cycle?
Will it? And by the way, Jonathan Cahn asks that question, but he quickly says, I'm not saying it comes on that date. I'm just saying be watchful, because look at what's happened in the past. By the way, it's called Out of the Mouth of Two Witnesses, 4 DVDs in this, very well produced, very inspirational, and very informative. We've got them at the prophecywatchers.com online bookstore right now. Just go to prophecywatchers.com, click the online bookstore, and you come right to this DVD. And believe me, it's worth watching. It's an easy watch, too. To me, it's just something that just pulls you along. I think it's extremely well produced.
It is. You know, we've got almost 500 products in our online bookstore now in just 8.5 short months. I mean, we've watched a miracle in action here. And even better, do you know there are hundreds of people that already have this DVD in their DVD player at their home? Well, it just came out just a few days ago. How do they have this DVD already? Well, we shipped it the day they ordered it. And I'm kind of like a proud father with regard to that, because when you order stuff from us, all we can tell you is unless there's a seller back order, which does happen from time to time, Bill Salas is having trouble keeping up with the demand for this DVD. But unless there's a seller back order, your products are out the door in 24 hours. Don't tell my wife I said this, but sometimes in an hour or two.
Wow.
So the minute they come in, they are fulfilled and they are out the door on the way. 2 or 3 days later, they're in your home. They're in your mailbox. So things are working the way they're supposed to.
The Middle East, ISIS, the blood moons, the Shemitah cycle. We're watching. What can I say? We're the prophecy watchers. And Bob, we want everybody else to be watching too.
Is it just a coincidence? We're almost a little fearful we're not fear mongers, we're not date setters, we're not making predictions, but we're watching carefully, and you should be too.
I'm Gary Stearman, wishing you a great day in the Lord, and keep watching, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter, or follow us at facebook.com/prophecywatchers. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.